As we've already suggested, discretionary spending is a very powerful tool to push an economy towards its long-run equilibrium output. And we've already discussed two tools that the government has at its disposal in order to influence the economy. We take a look at taxes and government spending. So take a look at this illustration. We've already taken a look at the aggregate demand and short-run aggregate supply analysis from before, and we're operating currently at point E. At point E, we have price level P0 and a GDP output level of Q0. What economic situation does the economy find itself in the short run at point E? In the short run, it's finding itself in a recession. So remember, anytime we're operating below our Q star level, below our long run aggregate supply curve, the economy is in some type of recession. So in order for us to get out of the recession, in this particular example, the government does have two tools at its disposal using discretionary spending that we've already talked about. They can change taxes or they can change the government spending. And both of these have the same innate ability of affecting our aggregate demand curve, and by shifting the aggregate demand curve in the appropriate direction, that can help push us to our long-run equilibrium. But which one of these tools is going to have a greater impact on the economy? Is it going to be a change in taxes, or is it going to be a change in government spending? So the end result is going to look like something like this, where we have the aggregate demand curve shifting over to the right away from the origin, where we are going to reach our long-run equilibrium at point A. We're back to our full employment level of GDP, our Q star. So which one of these is going to have this full impact right here? The change in government spending or the change in taxes? So suppose that I give you specific numbers right here. Suppose that I tell you that in order for us to get out of the recession, the government has two policy that they have in mind. They can either increase government spending by $100 or they can decrease our taxes by $100. Both of them have the same innate ability of shifting the aggregate demand curve over to the right. But which one of these is going to have a greater impact on the economy? If you remember from our sort of previous discussions. If you remember from our previous sort of setups that we've done in the previous chapters, you'll remember that government spending has a much greater impact on governments on our equilibrium income and output because it gets the full impact of the spending multiplier. The tax multiplier, remember, is less than the government spending multiplier itself. So here we want to go ahead and show once again why this is going to be the case. So we want to take a look at government spending versus taxes. So government spending versus taxes when it comes in terms of discretionary type of fiscal policies. So here, remember, we said that tax multiplier is less than the government spending multiplier. So the tax multiplier is less than the government spending multiplier. Government spending multiplier. Remember that with taxes, we are the ones that are going to have to bear some of this burden, and we're going to be changing a portion of our consumption and savings habits as a result of the tax change. So we said that if I give you these specific numbers, we'll notice that if G increases by $100, or if T decreases by $100, so in both of these cases, they both are going to affect our aggregate demand curve and shift it over to the right. We're going to notice that the government spending effect, the G effect, we'll call it that for short, the G effect would shift aggregate demand, that curve further to the right. So as we've already surmised, the government spending multiplier is much larger than the tax multiplier, and we're going to get the full impact of the spending multiplier itself. And when we talk about this graphically, we can either have an increase in government spending of $100 or a decrease in taxes of $100. When we increase government spending, we're going to get the full impact, and that can push us all the way back to our long-run equilibrium here at AD1. However, if we decrease taxes by $100, the aggregate demand curve is only going to shift by a certain ratio or a certain percentage. It's not going to get the full impact, so it would be somewhere in between our two aggregate demand curves right here. So we're not going to get the full impact, and we'd only be somewhere in between, and we may still be in the recession if we only take a look at taxes, if we change taxes in that amount. So that leads to a very big question of why the government would ever pursue changes in taxes over changes in government spending when we know the change in government spending is going to have a greater impact on the economy, and that's where a lot of politics do come into play. So public choice theory. So when it comes to changing taxes, that's just going to make the politician look a lot better. We're going to go ahead and vote for the politician. We're going to feel better about the politician that says, hey, I'm going to reduce your taxes, over the politician that says, hey, I'm going to increase government spending. It's just sort of a psychological sort of tool that politicians like to use just to sort of get them to be better in the public light and get us to sort of get us to more likely vote for him or her. So here, once again, politics come a lot of play into economic analysis. So once again, like we did in the previous sort of videos, we want to go ahead and show the specific mathematics to show why this is going to be true. So here we want to compare the effects on equilibrium income. So compare effects on equilibrium income. Equilibrium income. So remember, the more practice that you get with this, the easier it's going to become when you go ahead and take a look at the exam question. So we compare effects on equilibrium income. Suppose that I give you MPC equals to 0.75. So once again, we have MPC equal to 3/4 right here. That information has to be given to you. And from this, remember that if our MPC is equal to 0.75, our multiplier is equal to 4. So 1 over 1 minus your MPC, our multiplier is equal to 4. So any spending change is going to get multiplied by 4 times that amount. With this, we can go ahead and compare government spending versus taxes. So here, piece by piece. Suppose that government spending increases by $100. Government spending increases by $100. Is government spending affected by the multiplier? Yes, it is. CIG net exports, they are all affected by the spending multiplier. So here, with government spending increasing by $100, it gets the full impact of the spending multiplier. So we multiply that by 4. So therefore, we get a positive $400 to income. So here, this is exactly pushing the aggregate demand curve all the way back to our long run equilibrium. However, compare this to taxes decreasing by $100. So taxes going down by $100. So if taxes go down by $100, how is that going to impact the economy? When taxes go down by $100, so T goes down by $100, remember that we are the ones that are going to be gaining from this sort of shock right here. Remember, we have disposable income, so if taxes go down by $100, our disposable income has gone up by $100. And if our disposable income goes up by $100, we're going to divide up this increase in our income into spending and savings habits. So how do our consumption and savings habits change? Well, we need to go ahead and take a look exactly how much of this $100 that we're going to consume and how much of this $100 we're going to save. Here, remember, we have our little MPC equations. MPC is equal to change in C over change in Y. We can algebraically manipulate that a little bit. So if we have change in Y, which is a positive $100 here, and if we multiply it by the MPC, which is 0.75, this will give us exactly our change in C, how much consumption changes by. So in this example, it's going to be a positive $75. For savings, we can do the opposite case as well. Remember, positive 100 right here. This is our change in Y. When we multiply it by our MPS, which is 0.25, because remember, MPC plus MPS has to equal to 1, we will get our change in S, which is equal to a positive $25. But we're not done here. Once again, which one of these is going to be affected by the multiplier? It's only going to be the consumption. So here, consumption gets multiplied by the spending multiplier, which equals to 4. $75 times 4 will give us a positive $300 to income. So once again, when we compare the changes in income versus when we take a look at government spending versus a change in taxes, we notice that, hey, government spending is going to have a much greater impact on our equilibrium income than an equivalent change in taxes. So once again, the tax multiplier is less than the government spending multiplier, and this is exactly how you sort of process and do the long way to sort of see exactly why this is going to be true mathematically. So we've done a few examples of this already before, but once again, getting a lot of practice is going to be good for us. So essentially right here, like we said, in order for us to get fully pushed out of the recession, the government may want to pursue government spending more than taxes, but once again, there are going to be a lot of political implications. So the politics and economics, they're going to tie with one another, even though they really shouldn't in this sort of case. So with all of this, we can go ahead and do a quick review. Remember that Changes in taxes have a less direct impact on income and output than an equivalent change in government spending, and we've already shown this graphically. We've shown it mathematically as well. Remember, these are the specific numbers that are being provided to you, and we worked through this entire methodology and channel right here. A $100 reduction in spending would have a larger impact on aggregate output. So remember, the reduction and increases, they do work in both directions because the multiplier does work in both ways. And just remember that in order for us to have macroeconomic equilibrium, we have this sort of condition that we have right here. Remember that taxes are going to be seen as some type of spending withdrawal, and that's why we only get a portion of the full spending multiplier when it comes to changes in taxes, while government spending is seen as a spending injection and will get the full impact of the spending multiplier itself. So once again, tax multiplier, government spending multiplier, go ahead, take a look at that, and you'll be good to go. In the next section, we're going to go ahead and take a look at fiscal policy and add in one more tool for fiscal policy, the tool that the government can sort of use at its disposal in order to influence the economy. I'll see you guys there.